Your life changes the moment you change what you focus on, because focus is not just attention, it is direction. Whatever you consistently focus on grows stronger in your mind, shapes your emotions, and ultimately becomes your reality. Most people don't realize this, but they are practicing something every single day. They are practicing worry, doubt, fear, or frustration. And whatever you practice, you become. If you wake up every morning thinking about what you lack, what went wrong, or what might fail, your brain automatically searches for evidence to confirm those thoughts. That focus programs your nervous system to expect disappointment, and your actions shrink to match that expectation. The truth is, your mind is a meaning-making machine. It doesn't ask whether your focus is helpful or harmful. It simply magnifies it. When you focus on problems, you feel powerless. When you focus on possibilities, you feel energized. The same situation can feel like a prison or a stepping stone depending on what you choose to focus on. This is why two people can face the same circumstances and walk away with completely different lives. One focuses on why it can't be done. The other focuses on how it must be done. Focus controls emotion, and emotion drives action. If you want to change your actions, you must first change how you feel. And if you want to change how you feel, you must change what you dwell on moment to moment. This is not positive thinking, this is mental conditioning. Elite performers don't wait to feel motivated. They direct their focus deliberately. They train themselves to ask better questions like, what can I learn from this? What is this preparing me for? How can I use this right now? These questions instantly shift focus from weakness to strength. What you focus on consistently becomes your identity. If you focus on being tired, you live tired. If you focus on being overwhelmed, life feels heavy. But when you focus on growth, solutions, and progress, even small wins create momentum. The brain is wired to reinforce whatever you feed it repeatedly. This is why daily focus is more powerful than occasional inspiration. 1 hour of motivation cannot override 3 hours of negative focus. This is why listening daily matters. Repetition creates belief, and belief shapes behavior. When you hear empowering messages every day, your inner dialogue begins to change. You start catching negative thoughts before they take control. You begin to shift from reacting to life to directing it. Over time, this becomes automatic. Your focus moves from survival to creation, from fear to certainty. The moment you take control of your focus, you take control of your life. Not someday, not when circumstances change. Right now, your future is not waiting for more resources, more time, or more luck. It is waiting for a new focus practiced daily with intention and certainty. Daily emotional conditioning is shaping your destiny whether you are aware of it or not. Every single day you condition your nervous system through the emotions you repeatedly experience. Emotions are not random, they are learned patterns. When you wake up and immediately feel stress, frustration, or anxiety, your body locks into those states and begins to expect them. Over time, these emotional patterns become automatic, and what feels familiar starts to feel normal, even if it's painful. This is how people stay stuck for years without realizing that it's not their circumstances controlling them, but their emotional habits. Your emotions act as commands to your brain. When you consistently feel overwhelmed, your brain searches for more reasons to feel overwhelmed. When you consistently feel confident, your brain looks for opportunities to win. The nervous system doesn't respond to logic first, it responds to emotion. That's why you can know exactly what to do and still not do it. Information doesn't drive behavior. Emotional state does. If you want to change your results, you must learn to deliberately change how you feel every day. Most people wait for something outside them to change their emotional state. They wait for good news, for motivation, for someone to believe in them. But high performers understand a deeper truth: emotion can be generated internally. Through breathing, movement, posture, focus, and meaning, you can shift your state instantly. When you do this daily, you stop being a victim of mood and start becoming the architect of your experience. Repetition is what makes emotions stick. One powerful moment doesn't rewire the brain. Daily conditioning does. When you expose yourself every day to empowering language, strong imagery, and certainty-based thinking, you are training your nervous system to associate life with strength instead of fear. Over time, this becomes your default setting. You don't need willpower when your emotional state supports success. You move naturally toward growth because it feels right. Your destiny is shaped not by what you think occasionally, but by what you feel consistently. Feelings influence your standards, And your standards determine what you tolerate and what you demand from yourself and from life. If your daily emotional state is low, your standards drop. You accept less. You delay action. You settle. But when you condition yourself daily to feel energized, grateful, and certain, your standards rise automatically. You begin to act in alignment with the person you are becoming. This is why listening every day matters. It's not about hype, it's about training. Just like the body responds to daily physical exercise, the mind responds to daily emotional exercise. When you commit to conditioning your emotional state intentionally, life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. You begin to respond with strength instead of fear, clarity instead of confusion, and action instead of hesitation. Change your emotional rituals and you change your destiny. Not slowly, not someday, but step by step, day by day, until the person you are becoming feels more familiar than the person you used to be. The quality of your life is directly shaped by the quality of the questions you ask yourself every day. Questions are powerful because the brain is designed to answer them automatically. It doesn't judge whether a question is empowering or destructive. It simply searches for proof. When you repeatedly ask, "Why does this always happen to me?" your mind will deliver reasons that reinforce frustration and helplessness. But when you ask, "What can I do right now to move forward?" your mind shifts into solution mode. In that moment, you reclaim control. Most people live on autopilot, asking the same limiting questions without realizing it. They wake up and unconsciously ask, "What do I have to deal with today?" Or "What's going to go wrong?" These questions instantly condition the nervous system for stress and resistance. The brain then filters reality to match the question. You don't see opportunities because you didn't ask for them. You don't notice strengths because you're not searching for them. Your questions become the lens through which you experience life. Powerful people don't have fewer problems. They ask better questions. Instead of asking, "Why am I not motivated?" they ask, "What would make me feel strong right now?" Instead of asking, "Why is this so hard?" they ask, "How can this make me better?" These questions change your emotional state instantly. And when your emotional state changes, your behavior changes. Better questions lead to better focus, and better focus leads to better actions. Questions also shape your identity. If you constantly ask, "Am I good enough?" you live in self-doubt. If you ask, "How can I grow today?" you live in progress. Over time, the questions you repeat daily become beliefs. Those beliefs determine what you attempt, what you avoid, and what you tolerate. This is why transformation doesn't begin with answers, it begins with questions. You don't need to wait for life to give you clarity. You can create clarity by asking intentional questions in moments of uncertainty. When challenges appear, ask, "What is this here to teach me?" When fear shows up, ask, "What would courage look like right now?" These questions don't eliminate difficulty, but they give it purpose. And purpose turns pain into power. Daily repetition is what makes this work. One powerful question asked once can inspire you, but powerful questions asked daily rewire your mind. They train your brain to search for growth instead of threat, for strength instead of weakness. Over time, this becomes automatic. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently. Your life is not defined by the events you experience, but by the questions you ask about them. Change the questions, and you change the direction of your focus. Change your focus and you change how you feel. Change how you feel and you change what you do. Ask better questions every day and your life will rise to meet them. Every decision you make is driven by one simple force, the desire to avoid pain or gain pleasure. This is happening constantly whether you are aware of it or not. You don't wake up and consciously analyze every choice, but your nervous system does it instantly. If something feels painful, you move away. If something feels pleasurable, you move toward it. This is the hidden force behind habits, relationships, success, and failure. Until you learn to consciously control pain and pleasure, they will control you. Most people intellectually know what they should do, but emotionally they associate pain with taking action and pleasure with staying the same. They know exercise is good, but they associate it with discomfort. They know discipline creates freedom, but they associate it with restriction. So they procrastinate, hesitate, and repeat the same patterns. The brain always chooses what it believes will create the most pleasure or the least pain in the moment, not in the long term. This is why willpower alone never works. The moment your associations change, your behavior changes automatically. If you associate massive pain with staying the same and massive pleasure with growth, action becomes effortless. This is how lasting change happens, not through force, but through conditioning. When you link pain to procrastination, excuses, and self-betrayal, your brain begins to reject those patterns. When you link pleasure to progress, discipline, and self-respect, those behaviors feel rewarding. Pain and pleasure also shape your standards. What you tolerate is directly connected to what you associate pain with. If staying in a comfort zone feels safe, you stay there. But if you associate pain with regret, wasted potential, and missed opportunities, your standards rise. You stop accepting excuses from yourself. You stop negotiating with fear. You move, not because you have to, but because staying still hurts more than moving forward. This is why emotional leverage is everything. People change instantly when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. They don't need more information. They need stronger reasons. When your reasons are strong enough, fear loses its power. The mind stops asking, what if I fail? And starts asking, what if I don't change? You can condition this daily. Through visualization, language, and repetition, you can train your nervous system to crave growth. When you vividly imagine the pain of a future where nothing changes and the pleasure of a future where you step into your potential, your brain responds as if it were real. Over time, these emotional associations become automatic. Master pain and pleasure, and you master your decisions. Master your decisions, and you master your destiny. You are not lazy, broken, or unmotivated. You are simply conditioned, and conditioning can be changed. The moment you decide what pain you will no longer tolerate and what pleasure you will pursue relentlessly, your life begins to move in a new direction. Repetition is the force that turns a thought into a belief and a belief into a way of life. Nothing becomes real to the mind until it is repeated enough times to feel certain. The brain is designed to strengthen whatever it experiences consistently. A single idea heard once may inspire you, but an idea repeated daily reshapes how you see yourself in the world. This is why people develop strong beliefs about who they are, even when those beliefs limit them. They didn't choose them consciously. They repeated them unconsciously. Every belief you have today was built through repetition. At some point, a thought was introduced, and through constant reinforcement, through words, experiences, and emotional intensity, it became accepted as truth. The mind does not question what is familiar. Familiar feels safe. When you repeatedly tell yourself, this is just how I am, or people like me don't succeed, the brain accepts it as fact and organizes your behavior around it. You don't need proof. Repetition becomes the proof. This is why motivation fades, but conditioning lasts. Motivation is emotional fuel, but repetition is mental programming. When you listen to empowering messages daily, you are not just feeling good in the moment, you are installing new beliefs. Each repetition weakens old patterns and strengthens new ones. At first, the new belief may feel unnatural. It may even feel fake. But with enough repetition, it becomes familiar, and familiar becomes believable. Belief is what gives thoughts power. You can know what to do and still not do it if you don't believe you are capable or worthy. Belief removes hesitation. It creates certainty, and certainty produces action. When you believe something deeply, you don't need motivation. You act automatically. This is why athletes, leaders, and high performers train their minds daily. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on repetition to make excellence their default. Repetition also shapes your inner voice. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you experience life. If that voice is critical, doubtful, or fearful, it wasn't born that way. It was trained. And anything that was trained can be retrained. When you expose your mind daily to language of strength, possibility, and certainty, your inner dialogue begins to change. You start encouraging yourself instead of attacking yourself. This is why listening every day is non-negotiable. Not once, not occasionally, daily. Just like physical muscles grow through repeated stress and recovery, mental strength grows through repeated focus and reinforcement. Over time, you stop trying to believe. You simply do. Repetition creates belief. Belief creates behavior. Behavior creates results, and results reinforce belief. This is the loop that shapes a life. When you consciously choose what you repeat, you take control of that loop. And when you control that loop, you control the direction of your future. Your identity is the invisible force that controls your behavior, and it is far more powerful than any goal you set. Goals are things you want to achieve, but identity is who you believe you are. You will always act in alignment with your identity, even if it contradicts your conscious desires. This is why people set goals with excitement and abandon them weeks later. The goal never failed. The identity was never upgraded. If you see yourself as someone who tries, you will try and stop. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you will find struggle everywhere. Identity works like a thermostat. No matter how high you push your goals, your behavior will eventually return to the level your identity is set at. Long-term success is not about chasing outcomes. It's about becoming the type of person for whom those outcomes are natural. Most identities are inherited, not chosen. They are shaped by past experiences, labels, emotional memories, and repetition. At some point, you may have failed, been criticized, or felt powerless, and your mind formed an identity around that moment. Over time, that identity hardened into a belief. The problem is not that people can't change, it's that they try to change their actions without changing who they believe they are. The moment identity shifts, behavior follows effortlessly. When someone stops seeing themselves as unmotivated and starts seeing themselves as disciplined, their actions change without force. They don't argue with themselves anymore. They simply act in alignment with who they are. Identity removes inner conflict. You stop asking, should I do this? And start saying, this is just what I do. This is why daily conditioning is essential. Identity is reinforced through what you focus on, what you repeat, and what you emotionally experience. When you listen daily to empowering messages, visualize yourself winning, and act in small ways that match your new identity, the brain updates its self-image. Every small promise you keep to yourself is evidence that supports the new identity. Every broken promise reinforces the old one. Goals are temporary. Identity is permanent unless you change it deliberately. When people reach a goal without changing identity, they often self-sabotage and fall back. But when identity evolves, success becomes sustainable. You don't have to chase motivation. Your identity pulls you forward. This is why lasting change is internal. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your identity. When you decide who you are and reinforce it daily through thought, emotion, and action, results stop feeling like a struggle. They become an expression of who you are becoming. Change your identity, and your life will never need to be forced again. Small daily rituals are the invisible architecture of a transformed life. People often believe that change comes from one big decision or a dramatic breakthrough, but real transformation is built quietly through what you do every day when no one is watching. A ritual is different from a habit. A habit is something you do. A ritual is something you do with intention, emotion, and meaning. When you attach meaning to a simple action and repeat it daily, it begins to shape your identity and your future. Your life today is a reflection of your daily rituals. How you start your morning, how you speak to yourself, what you focus on when things go wrong, and how you end your day are all rituals. They may seem small, but they compound over time. A few minutes of intentional focus each day can rewire the brain, condition emotional strength, and shift your standards. Small rituals done consistently outperform massive effort done occasionally. Rituals work because they bypass resistance. Big goals trigger fear and overwhelm, but small actions feel manageable. When you commit to a daily ritual, you remove the question of motivation. You don't wait to feel ready. You simply show up. Over time, consistency builds trust with yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Every time you honor a small ritual, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who follows through. Emotion is what gives rituals power. If you perform a ritual mechanically, it becomes routine. But when you engage your body, breath, posture, and focus, the nervous system responds. A few deep breaths, a moment of gratitude, a powerful question, or a short visualization can shift your emotional state instantly. When this is done daily, the brain begins to associate your rituals with strength and clarity. Rituals also create momentum. When you win the first moments of your day, you carry that energy forward. When you end your day intentionally, you program your mind for growth during rest. These moments may seem insignificant, but they create a rhythm, and rhythm creates stability. In a world full of uncertainty, daily rituals give you something you can control. This is how transformation becomes sustainable. You don't rely on inspiration, you rely on structure. Over time, the person who performs these rituals becomes someone new. Not overnight, but inevitably. The old patterns weaken because they are no longer reinforced. The new patterns strengthen because they are practiced daily. You don't need to change everything at once. Change one ritual, then another, Then another. Small rituals done daily with intention don't just change your behavior, they change who you believe you are. And when your identity shifts, your life follows. Limiting patterns are the unconscious behaviors and emotional responses that keep repeating in your life, even when you promise yourself things will be different. They show up as procrastination, self-doubt, emotional reactions, excuses, or avoidance. These patterns are not character flaws, they are conditioned responses. At some point, your brain learned that responding this way reduced pain or created comfort, and it locked that behavior in as a survival strategy. The problem is that what once protected you is now preventing you from growing. Patterns only have power when they run automatically. The moment you become aware of a pattern, you gain the ability to interrupt it. Awareness creates a pause, and in that pause lies choice. Most people notice their patterns after the damage is done, after the outburst, the missed opportunity, or the self-sabotage. But high performers train themselves to catch the pattern at the beginning when it first appears as a thought, a feeling, or a physical sensation. Interrupting a pattern requires intensity. The nervous system does not respond to logic alone, it responds to emotion and sensation. This is why simply telling yourself to stop rarely works. You must disrupt the pattern physically or emotionally. Change your posture, your breathing, your voice, or your focus. Movement shifts energy. A deep breath taken with intention can break a cycle of anxiety. A sudden shift in focus can stop a spiral of negative thinking. The goal is to break the automatic loop before it completes. But interruption alone is not enough. If you stop an old pattern without installing a new one, the brain will return to what is familiar. This is why replacement is critical. The moment you interrupt a limiting pattern, you must replace it with an empowering one. Ask a better question. Choose a stronger response. Take a small action aligned with growth. Over time, the new response becomes the default. Speed matters. The faster you interrupt and replace a pattern, the less power it has. This is why daily conditioning is essential. When you train your mind every day through repetition, visualization, and emotional focus, you strengthen your ability to respond instead of react. The brain becomes more flexible. What once felt uncontrollable becomes manageable. This process builds confidence. Every time you interrupt a pattern successfully, you prove to yourself that you are not your past. You are not your emotions. You are the one who chooses. That realization is empowering. It shifts your identity from someone who is controlled by habits to someone who controls their responses. Change does not require perfection. It requires awareness and speed. The moment you interrupt a limiting pattern and replace it with something stronger, you weaken the old wiring and strengthen the new. Do this enough times, and what once controlled you becomes something you no longer recognize. Gratitude and certainty are two of the most powerful emotional states you can condition because they instantly change how your brain interprets the world. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present, and certainty replaces hesitation with trust. When practiced daily, these states don't just make you feel better, they rewire your nervous system to expect positive outcomes and to act with confidence. Gratitude is not about denying problems or pretending everything is perfect. It is about training your mind to recognize abundance instead of scarcity. When you consistently focus on what is working, what you have learned, and what you appreciate, your brain begins to search for more of it. This is how the mind works. It expands whatever you focus on. Gratitude interrupts stress, lowers emotional resistance, and creates a sense of grounding. In that state, you think more clearly and respond more intelligently. Certainty, on the other hand, is the absence of inner conflict. It is not arrogance, and it does not require knowing every step. Certainty is the decision to trust yourself and your direction, even when the path is unclear. When you feel certain, your body aligns with your intention, your posture changes, your voice changes, your actions become decisive. The nervous system reads certainty as safety, and safety allows you to take bold action. Together, gratitude and certainty create a powerful loop. Gratitude strengthens emotional stability, and certainty fuels momentum. When you feel grateful, fear loses its grip. When you feel certain, doubt fades. This combination conditions the brain to associate life with opportunity instead of threat. Over time, this becomes your default response. Most people wait for external proof before they feel grateful or certain. They wait for results before they trust themselves. But high performers reverse this process. They generate gratitude and certainty first, and results follow. This is not blind optimism, it is emotional leadership. When you choose your emotional state intentionally, you stop being controlled by circumstances. Daily practice is what makes this permanent. A few moments each day spent acknowledging what you appreciate and reaffirming what you stand for can shift your entire trajectory. Speak gratitude out loud. Feel it in your body. Visualize certainty in your actions. These small practices train the brain to operate from strength instead of fear. Gratitude anchors you in the present. Certainty pulls you into the future. One keeps you grounded, the other keeps you moving. Together, they rewire your mind for success. When these states become habitual, challenges feel manageable, decisions feel clear, and action feels natural. You don't need to wait for life to give you reasons to be grateful or certain. You create those reasons through focus and repetition. And when you do, you build a mind that is resilient, confident, and prepared to win. Massive action is the antidote to fear, doubt, and overthinking. Fear does not disappear by waiting, analyzing, or hoping for confidence to arrive. Confidence is built through movement. The moment you take action, your focus shifts from imagined outcomes to real-world engagement. Action interrupts fear because fear thrives in stillness and uncertainty. When you move, your nervous system receives a new signal you are in control. Most people believe they need clarity before they act, but clarity comes from action, not the other way around. When you take massive action, even imperfect action, you gather feedback. That feedback creates learning, and learning creates confidence. Each step forward, no matter how small, weakens fear's grip. Fear loses power when it is challenged consistently. Massive action does not mean reckless action. It means committed, consistent, and courageous action. It means showing up daily, even when you don't feel ready. Waiting for perfect conditions is a form of self-protection disguised as logic, but growth lives outside comfort. The more you step into discomfort, the more your comfort zone expands. Momentum is built through repetition. One action creates energy. That energy fuels the next action. Over time, momentum becomes self-sustaining. This is why people who act consistently appear confident and unstoppable. They are not fearless, they are practiced. They have trained themselves to move through fear instead of stopping because of it. Action also reshapes identity. Every time you act despite fear, you send a message to your brain, I am someone who follows through. That message compounds. Over time, fear no longer defines your behavior. Your standards rise. You begin to expect more from yourself because you have evidence that you can handle challenges. Procrastination is not a time problem, it is an emotional problem. Massive action solves it by removing the space for emotional debate. When you act immediately, the mind does not have time to create excuses. Speed disrupts self-doubt. This is why decisive people outperform hesitant ones, even when they are less prepared. Daily action is what creates lasting change. Motivation comes and goes, but movement creates progress regardless of mood. When you commit to taking action every day, you build trust with yourself. That trust becomes confidence. And confidence fuels bigger action. Fear is not a signal to stop. It is a signal to move. The faster you act, the faster fear dissolves. Massive action taken daily does not just eliminate fear, it builds momentum, clarity, and belief. And once momentum is on your side, your life begins to move in a direction that fear can no longer control.